Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Trucker Tales. So today we've got a really interesting story that I picked up out of South Carolina a while back of a gentleman who went hunting with his buddies and apparently encountered something very strange. He referred to it as a dogman. Most of the time, those stories usually come from the Appalachia area, but he got this one while he was out in the woods with him and like two other buddies. So, for the sake of our story, we're going to say that the gentleman who gave me the story, his name is Steve, and he had two buddies. We'll call them Zach and Bob. So, it was the middle of winter, and him and his buddies decided they were bored out of their minds, so they decided they wanted to go hunting. Why not, right? Maybe they'll find a deer, maybe they'll find who knows. But they were tired of being cooped up in their little trailers with nothing to do, because I guess from what he said, the power had gone out. So he was like, let's just hop in the truck, grab our rifles, let's go hunt. So they decide to wake up nice and early that day, around like 4 or 5 in the morning, load up the rifles. They brought enough food to last them about 2 days. And they brought, binoculars and blankets and whatever, the normal stuff you would take with you if you were to go hunting in the winter, in the woods, And they drive for about 4 or 5 hours, get to a real nice setup that they have, and they decide to go to where they've got this. It's like a small cabin, and it's got like a bathroom in it. It's just a place to hold up before you go hunting and then come back to. They park their trucks up, they go out in the woods. Now they walk out in the woods from what he told me, about 2 hours, and he decides, we're gonna post up here, get up in the trees, and put out some feed. I don't know the hunting laws in South Carolina. I don't know if putting out feed is legal or not. I know in some states it is, some states it's not. They get up in their tree, I guess platforms you call them, and there's Steve. And off to the left, about 100 feet or so, is Zach. And then off to the right, about another 100 feet or so, is Bob. They're about 30 feet off the ground. They're up there. And they wait. It's freezing cold. It's gusty. It's nasty. It's snowing off and on. But it's better than sitting in the house with nothing to do, with no power. So they make the best of it, and they just relax and enjoy the nature, which is all you can do when you're up there. After about, I don't know, maybe he said about, from what he could guess, because he didn't really check his watch, maybe after about 2 hours or so, they start to hear movement out in the woods. Now, there's a lot of weird stories about things in the wintertime, especially in the woods, when you're out there deep enough. And there are some mountainous areas in South Carolina, a good chunk, So they're not like in the mountain, they're like in the mountain, a little bit up above the base. And usually, you don't see a lot of motion in the winter. So what they heard coming was pretty alerting. It was jarring. He said it sounded like someone stepped on like an old branch and it snapped. Not a twig, a branch. It was a very distinct, crunch that he heard. Now, he looks over to Zach and Bob. They look over at him. They kind of give each other a nod. Zach starts scoping out that way. Bob starts scoping out that way. And Steve's just kind of like keeping it down the middle. And they're looking through their scopes. And they're looking, and they're looking, and they're looking. And they don't see anything, but they can clearly hear something. Now, after a few minutes of this, now mind you, it's pretty overcast out because it was snowing off and on. So it's kind of dark between the trees, the overcast, and at this point, the sun's starting to come down. It's past the 3 p.m. point. It's starting to get dark. And something that really kind of jarred him was he could hear these footsteps and the sounds of crunching leaves and breaking branches, but he couldn't see anything. And every once in a while, he'd pull up and look at, his buddies, and they would kind of look over at him, and kind of shrug like, we don't see it either. And then what really kind of made his blood freeze for a split second was what he was hearing. The footsteps sounded bipedal, meaning 2 feet, not 4. So, what the heck is out here making this kind of noise on 2 legs? Now, South Carolina's not really a big thing for Bigfoot. It's the last thing he thought. But he was like, that doesn't sound like a deer. Doesn't sound like a bear. Doesn't sound like anything, really. But it's big, whatever it is. Or it's, at least if it's not big, it's heavy and clearly does not give a damn about how much noise it's making. Eventually, he gets a hand signal from Bob on the right. And he looks over and he kind of points in the direction and does the signal for it's low to the ground. Steve turns his rifle over there and he sees something big moving in the woods. Could be a wolf, he said to himself. Like, it could be a wolf. Very thick, grayish brown fur. You know, it was kind of behind a log, but based on the coat, the pelt, he could tell, like, that's gotta be a wolf. Now, he starts thinking to himself, like, much in the way of wolves around this part of the state, especially this time of year, that's really strange. But he's thinking, hey, you know, if it's a wolf, he must be hunting something, and if he's hunting something and we're hunting something, that means there's got to be deer out here somewhere. So he just keeps an eye on it, and after a while, now he's just focusing down the scope of this thing, so he's not looking at his friends, he's just looking at he's tracking it. And eventually he hears a very loud snap, like a fresh tree limb being like cracked off of a tree to his left. And he looks away from the scope and he looks over to where Zach's at. Zach's not there. He can't find Zach. So now he's got his rifle and he's using the scope to try to find his friend, thinking, oh my God, he just fell out of the tree. And again, they're like 30 feet up. So if you fall out of your stand at 30 feet, you're going to get hurt bad. Maybe even dead if you land the wrong way. So he's looking, and off the base of the tree that he was at, he doesn't see anything. No blood, no Zach, no dropped rifle, nothing. So then, eventually, he looks up and he looks over at his buddy Bob, and he sees Bob doing the same thing he was doing, looking down his rifle scope at where Zach was. And he looks over at Steve and kind of gives him this, like, you know, let's get down, let's get out of here. Steve does like a hand signal, like no, and he points towards where the wolf was. Like, we can't get that, we can't go down there right now. There's a wolf. And could they have killed the wolf? If it was a wolf, sure. But they also were still hunter brain, thinking like a lot of legal repercussions for killing wolves out here. You need special permits, and it's got to be approved by, you know, the local state government. You can't just shoot wolves unless they're actively on your property attacking like your livestock or your dog or your property. You can't just go out in the woods and, oh, look, a wolf. You can't do that. You need special permissions. So there he's like, no, we can't get down with the wolf. And Bob is kind of like looking at him like, but Zach, like, just leave him there. What if he fell? You know, so he's giving him this like hand gesture, like. So finally, against his better judgment, Steve decides, let's get down. You know, if the wolf hears 2 of us, maybe it'll run off. They climb down their tree stands and they link up and they go over to the tree where Zach was, and they're looking all over the place. They don't see Zach anywhere. They don't see footprints. They don't see an impact area. They don't see anything. And he's like, I know I heard like a tree branch or something break. So he starts checking the surrounding trees, and all he finds is what looks like the rucksack that Zach had hanging from a broken tree limb like 20 feet off the ground. Like, it made no sense to him. And they start to fan out a little bit in separate directions, but staying in eyeshot and earshot of each other. And they finally decide, screw it, and break the silence and start yelling, Zach, where are you? You know, where are you, bud? And nothing. Dead quiet. And then Bob kind of points out to Steve, he's like, do you hear that? Steve's like, hear what? I don't hear anything. And Bob's like, exactly. I don't hear anything. All the ambient sounds of nature just went quiet. No birds. Hell, not even the wind through the trees. It got dead quiet. And normally in nature, when you're out in the woods, if everything goes quiet, there's only three possibilities, which is there's a predator nearby, because even the bugs will be getting quiet when a bear or a cougar, usually nature responds to predators by just going quiet. So if there's a predator by and he's thinking, okay, maybe this is a wolf, maybe it's tracking us. Two, you're about to get hit with something supernatural, which, let's be honest, probably wasn't in his mind at the time. Or three is it just got quiet. Sometimes it happens. So either it's circumstantial, we're being tracked by something, or some weird stuff's going on out here. His first thought is there's a wolf nearby. It's probably that. Now, Bob, despite him telling Bob like it's probably the wolf, he's like, I don't think it's the wolf. And Steve's like, what do you mean? He's like, did you notice that when we heard the footsteps, it sounded like it was bipedal? And Steve's like, yeah, I noticed that too. And he's like, what the hell could be out here that walks on two legs that makes that much noise, and nature responds to it by going quiet? He's like, I don't know. Bigfoot? That's when he finally started like, wait a minute. I found something. He never confirmed that it was a wolf. He saw the pelt and assumed it was a wolf. And then he starts thinking to himself, like, I found something very thick-coated hairy that I could see clearly. Didn't really peg it as a wolf, but it's weird. Like, okay, this is strange. So finally they decide to stay together. They keep kind of looking around. Now they're looking up in the trees. No Zach. Finally, one of them decides to crack off around, figuring, God forbid, he fell and like something grabbed him that we're not aware of. Maybe it was a bear. Well, he doesn't know. So he fires a round off into the sky. And shortly after that, like a couple seconds later, they hear what sounds like someone yelling off in the distance, like maybe another 20 feet away from where they're at, going up this little hill down towards a ravine. So they run up this hill and they look down, and at the foot of the ravine, not in the water, but right at the water, there's Zach. And Zach has got, it's snowing, there's blood all over the snow. It's everywhere. And Zach's just sitting there looking very dazed and confused. And he's got this massive wound on his right arm. They also noticed that one of his legs wasn't moving with the rest of his body. So they think, maybe he came down to take a leak. We missed it. He fell down the ravine now. Okay. So they're trying to rationalize it as they're going through this. And they start coming down the ravine to get Zach. And Zach looks up at them. And with this really panicked look on his face, just turns around and he's got his hunting knife in his hand. And he's kind of like holding it up. And they're like, hey, it's us. Like, relax. And he's just sitting there like wide-eyed, like, did you see it? Where did it go? Did you see it? We gotta get out of here. And he's like, see what? What happened? Did you fall out of the tree? And he's like, no, it was a wolf. And they're like, how did a wolf knock you out of your 30-foot tree stand? And he's like, it was a wolf, man, I'm telling you. It was a wolf. They're like, did you climb down the thing and get attacked by a wolf? And because we thought we saw a wolf. He's like, no, man, it grabbed me out of the tree. Steve and Bob are looking at Zach like he must have hit his head or something. Okay, so they try to help him up. They immediately realize that his entire right hip is dislocated. He lets out a scream of pain that you could probably hear back in town. They're like, okay, they put him down. They try to make him comfortable. They start looking at his arm, and it looks like he's got this like 5-finger gash going from his shoulder down his arm all the way to almost to the wrist. And that's why he's bleeding so much, is that they think it might have nicked an artery like on his forearm because he was puking blood from his arm. Now, them being good hunters, they have stuff in their bags for the situation. So Bob takes off his bag, pulls out an emergency tourniquet, and starts cranking it up on his arm, and they were able to slow the bleeding down to a trickle versus, pouring. And they tell him, like, dude, we gotta get you out of here. That's bad. You're gonna bleed out in like an hour or two if we don't get you out of here quickly. So Steve, again, being a properly prepared hunter, pulls out his phone. It's a hunting phone. It's like a satellite phone. And he starts trying to reach emergency services. And they get emergency services. He explains what's going on. And they say, we got a helicopter coming within like 20 minutes. So they're trying to take care of him, but while they're taking care of him, they keep hearing the bipedal footsteps out in the distance, a random tree limb snap, and then this very low guttural growl that sounded nothing like they'd ever heard. They said it sounded like a wolf, but like the bass was higher, if that makes sense. Like someone cranked the bass up to 11. They could feel the vibration of this growl in their chests, and they couldn't see a damn thing. Zach is immobile. He's done. He's crying in pain. Steve's trying to comfort him as best he can. Bob's standing with his rifle, looking through the tree line, looking up into the trees. He's like, dude, we need to either get him out of here, or you need to stop taking care of him, grab your rifle and watch my boat. Something's out here. And Steve's trying to dude, you're being paranoid. It's the adrenaline. Relax. He's like, you don't hear that? And finally, Steve gets quiet for a second. Zach gets quiet for a second, and you can hear it just, but like fast, off in the tree, just like out there. It was echoing around them. Now they're starting to think whatever it might be, there might be more than one. So finally, they decide, you know what, Zach, like, you're gonna hate us a lot. We're taking you back to the trucks. So he gets back on the satellite phone and tells them, like, something's out here stalking us. We gotta go. And they say, like, no, stay where you're at. If you move, we won't be able to find you. He's like, track my phone, whatever. We're going back to the cabin. And he gives them the coordinates to the cabin in case they get there before they do. And they grab Zach. He's screaming the whole way. And they're basically just trying to carry him as best they can. And while they're carrying him, this growl is getting louder and louder and closer. And they're still looking around and looking up, and they don't see anything until right before they get back to the cabin. So they walked with him, and he said it had to have been 3 hours, dragging him back, going as quickly as they could. Now it's almost dark. It's very dark now. And while they're getting closer to the cabin, it's getting more persistent, the growls, the stomping, until finally Steve, because Steve was a bit of a bigger guy, he's like, dude, like, enough. So he scoops up Zach by himself and hoists him up, and he just starts booking it towards the cabin while Bob's got his rifle and he's trying to watch his back. They get to the cabin, put him down, slam the door shut. And right as they slammed the door shut, because they weren't looking behind them at that point, when they got within like 10 feet of the cabin, they just booked it inside. Right as that door slammed, he said it sounded like a quarterback right into the door. Like something was right behind them. And as the door closed and latched, something slammed into it, going, "Fuck Jesus," and damn near took the door off its hinges. Luckily, this was a relatively newer constructed cabin, so the door held. But he said it shook the whole cabin. Like, you felt it in the floorboards when this thing made impact. So, excuse me. So they don't know what to do at this point. Now they both got their rifles. Zach's got his rifle, and he's sitting there on the floor just like, he's aiming at the windows. And they just hold out until they hear the helicopter, they start coming in. And that was it. They hear, they open it up, and there's the paramedic guys, whatever you call them, EMS, I don't know, whatever. I think it's paramedics when they come in for helicopter. They strap him to a gurney or a board or whatever, and then take him up. And they, Bob and Steve just get back in their trucks, and they haul ass out of there. And looking at it back retrospectively, they came to the conclusion that it was a Dogman. Now, again, for those of you who don't know, the legend of the Dogman is that there was like, I've heard a lot of different theories. There's that you know, they're spirits of the woods from the ancient, you know, tribes of the Native Americans. There's theories that they're actually not dogmen, they're actually some half-breed humanoid werewolf, like a lycanthrope stuck in the stage of like half conversion. But the theory that I thought was the most interesting is back in like the 40s, there was supposed to be some kind of a base in North Carolina up in the Appalachian Mountains. And because remember, dogmen have been sighted all up and down the Appalachian Mountains, from Kentucky all the way up to like, you know, all the way to the top. And apparently no one had ever seen one before until like 1948. And they think possibly that this military base up in North Carolina was doing like genetic experiments that were started during World War II, but after Operation Paperclip, if you know, you know, when a lot of the scientists were brought back after World War II from Germany, a lot of these scientists were given basically unlimited budgets and given free access to continue their craft, which is like one of the reasons why we got to the moon is because some of the scientists that worked on the rockets were rocket scientists from Nazi Germany back in the day that were brought back over from Germany after World War II. But that also includes architects, that also includes weapons specialists, manufacturers, that includes biological scientists, alchemical scientists, everything. All the brains of that group were brought over from Germany to America, given brand new lives, brand new identities, and these huge budgets to continue their research. And again, look up Operation Paperclip on your own. I won't bore you with those details right now, although if you guys want me to do a video on it, I will happily do a video on it. Leave a comment, and if we can get 10 people in the comment section saying they want it, I'll do an Operation Paperclip breakdown. There's probably already a million of them on YouTube though. So that's the theory running, is that during Operation Paperclip, about after the war was over, near like 1948, 1950, that they were like genetic experiments gone wrong that got loose. And the thing that kind of solidifies that a little bit is the American military during the 60s lost a lot of people in training. And I mean, I don't mean lost, I mean like MIA, gone. They disappeared, or they were found dead in the mountains of North Carolina, Kentucky, South Carolina, all that strip, because we used to send our people up to Appalachia to train for mountain combat. You know, anything that was high altitude or anything that involved rugged terrain, they were sent to the Appalachian area to train for mountain combat. And these guys would just go missing. Or they'd find them and they'd be dazed and confused and badly wounded, or in some cases they'd find them all torn up to death with what looked like to be claw marks, but not quite like a wolf, but like a wolf, if that makes sense. It was 5-finger claw mark, but it had the like groove of like what would be typical for a wolf. And they didn't believe in werewolves, so there were a couple sightings throughout history that you can Google of people that claim they saw these wolf-headed men. They were men. They were like 6-7 feet tall, very physically built, with very thick hair on their forearms, their chests, and they had the jaw, they had a wolf's head. And they were very fast, very quiet, usually traveled in packs. But the story that makes people think that it's military was there was a guy way back in like I think 75, and he swears that he went out there and he got attacked by something, and he fought it with his pistol and his hunting knife, and the attack was so ferocious and quick that he didn't really get a chance to actually pick up on what it was, he thought it was a wolf, but he kept getting grabbed and like thrown, and he's like, okay, this isn't a wolf. But after the scuffle, I guess he injured it enough that it left him alone. And while he was all torn up trying to stumble back to wherever, he noticed that in the area where he first got attacked and he struck back, he found a pair of dog tags, and he kept them. Then eventually, when he was recovered, he went to the local military base and said, hey, I found these in the woods. Can you run the tags and see if maybe some guy lost them or out in the, whatever. And the tags came back to a soldier who was enlisted in like 1952. And there's no record of him dying, retiring, nothing. It's like he was enlisted in this time and he just disappeared. There was no record of what happened to him, other than he was like a corporal. He was stationed at a base in North Carolina, and then that's it. That's all the record they had on him. So that's one of the things. I'm more inclined to think that than, some ancient spirits. I mean, who knows? Maybe it could be. I don't know. But that makes more sense to me if I were to believe it in the first place. I mean, again, these guys could have been out there drinking, dropping mushrooms. Who the hell knows? But what do you guys think? Leave it down in the comments what you think what your take on it is. I gotta say, it is interesting because it makes me wonder, like, if there were actually things like that out there, what's their lifespan? Because from what I was able to find, the last recorded Dogman encounter, I want to say it was in the mid-90s, and there hasn't been one updated since that I'm aware of, that I can find. So maybe they died of old age, because at this point, it's 2026. So how old will these things be? Or are they like werewolves? They have super long lifespans because of their genetic regenerative power, whatever. Or are these literally just humanoid half-dog hybrid people that can die of old age and die from gunshots? I don't know. It's a very interesting thing to think about. If it is real, it's like, that's crazy. Like, that's wild. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that. I mean, our government does a lot of crazy stuff behind the scenes. I'm not an anti-government person. I'm not a pro-government person, but I can definitely sit here and say that the government has done some very shady stuff in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised if they found a way to genetically modify, alter, and/or infuse humanoids with animals. And I mean, hell, Japan's trying to do it right now. They're trying to make cat girls, which is, don't get me started, but they've tried it. It's documented. It has been tried. It's not ethical. It's not moral. It's illegal pretty much everywhere. But I mean, why not? If we can find DNA strands from ancient mammoths and clone them and bring them back to the modern day, which they've also done, who knows? So, like I said, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. It was a pleasure telling you guys another story. And please come back to Trucker Tales. Subscribe, leave a like. And if you're listening to this while you drive, I hope you have a pleasant day and enjoy your drive. If you're watching this while you drive, I hope you get a flat tire. You'll be safe. Have a good day.